Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics Game Day Squad show. It is Wednesday, the 19th of March, and we are building up to round 2 of the AFL Fantasy season. I'm your host, Bales, and you can find me at BAILSDT across the socials. And joining me is my co-host for the season. It is Tom from Game Day Squad. Tom, mate, how are you? How was the first weekend of footy, and how did you go in terms of your squads on the weekend?
Oh, how do I answer this? Shocking, and shocking. Swans lost. My squad's lost. I didn't have a great round. But the beautiful thing about Game Day Squad is, although, seasonal is very important, there's a lot on the line, we can have that weekly mindset. So not the start to 2025 that I would have dreamt of, but it's going to make for a good comeback story. And I feel like I'm going to set those wheels in motion as of today. And we're going to be back on track, getting back on that leaderboard, because you definitely would not have seen me on any leaderboards after round 1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to crack any of the top 20 or anything across any of the competitions, but was able to get, I think, 24th in starter, finished 35th in classic, challenger was 22nd, and champion, where I don't really have it enough to really compete with those big guys, 42nd. So not too bad, not too far away from this. Obviously, the top 10, where you want to finish. You want to get those prize cards and everything. But for people that are sort of just starting out, really, it's the weekly prizes, the cash prizes, the packs, everything like that. And if you are new to Game Day Squad or you haven't signed up yet to the platform, AFL Fantasy Fanatics has partnered with Game Day Squad for 2025. So use my code BAILSDT at sign up, and you guys can get 3 free packs at sign up, valued at $21. So you get 3 of the 9 player common packs. You get your silvers, golds, platinums, maybe be able to snag a diamond, or even, if you are lucky enough, I know me and Tom haven't been lucky enough yet, but a legend card in one of those packs. So make sure you use the code BAILSDT when you sign up. So we'll get stuck into sort of the games ahead this week. But before we do, I want to we'll do this weekly. We'll give a star to a player that we've been really impressed with, and we'll give the dud to the player that we weren't impressed with. So, Tom, I'll go to you to start us off with last week from your starter side. Who gets your star of the week? And then I'll go to my star, and then we'll do the duds in that order.
Yeah, look, mate, I'm sorry to take this from you because it should be you saying this, but the only reason I'm going to take it is because I actually came out earlier last week on a TikTok and a short that I made, which was on Game Day Squad socials, and I said that Jordan Dawson might just finish as the #1 scoring player in all of fantasy. And not only, look, he didn't do it, to be fair. There are a couple better scores than him, but my goodness, he wasn't far off. And I'll tell you what, the reason I said that is because I think Dawson's in for a massive 2025 campaign. He is one of the most dynamic and best players. And I know as a Crows fan, I probably should have left it to you, but just because I was on that train and I told everyone he'd be one of the top scorers, I think he finished 3rd out of all mids. So, and it was only by a little margin to Dunkley in Game Day Squad. So what a performance. He was definitely my, not just star, my superstar from last round. And thank goodness I started him because I already had a pretty tough round, but without him, it would have been a lot tougher. Yeah,
well, as you said, you probably stole it from me, but at the end of the day, music to my ears, hearing about all the positivity from people talking about Jordan Dawson, because I was also pretty high on him. People would have heard in all of our other shows that I've been really high on what I think he might be able to do this season. I'm going to give my star of the week. I was originally thinking Tristan Cherry, but everyone's got him, right? So it's a bit hard to and he was very, very good. But I feel like this guy was a bit more of a pod in the midfield, and he performed well. And that's Noah Anderson. So scored 133 Game Day Squad points on the weekend. Yeah. And the big thing for me was he performed well, and it was away from home. Yes, I know people are going to say I was against West Coast and this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, his scoring away from home last year wasn't very good. Whereas it's a good start. He's a captain of the club. I have thought for a bit that him being the captain now, Gold Coast wanting to take that next step again this year, Noah Anderson is going to be the front of the queue, standing up and doing better away from home. And he did just that and got his season off to a very good start. So he gets my star of the week. Who gets your dud of the week?
Oof, good question. I'm going to go... Trying to think who was one of my worst performers. I'm going to go Luke Ryan from Freo. All-star caliber player in GameDay Squad last year. I think that's back-to-back all-star appearances. One of the best 7 forwards over the past 2 fantasy seasons here on GameDay Squad. But just didn't get off to the start that we probably expected from him. I thought the matchup was looking pretty good for him as well in terms of, Geelong don't really like to press too much, but it looked like Clark was getting a lot more of the ball early. And Ryan, still finished on a respectable 80, but goodness, he started really slow. He just seemed to not get his hands on the footy a lot. And he was still taking kick-ins, but there was definitely sort of a split dynamic there and maybe something to watch. But I think I'm only saying it because I'm disappointed. I had him as one of my higher-ranked defenders for the round. And, finishing with 80 when we had people like Wanganeen Miller scoring 140, whatever it was, he just popped off. Like, it was pretty tough, the difference there to watch.
Yeah. All I can hear you saying is, I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. That's what I got from you saying there. So for me, my dud of the week goes to Liam Baker. Unfortunately, I played him over. Obviously, didn't have a Riley Sanders and wouldn't have really gained that much if I'd played a Riley Sanders. The guy that actually played in my classic team a couple of us was a Jai Simpkin, who was one that really performed well. Probably should have put him in instead. But Liam Baker, though, the role's just unfortunately not there. Like, he had 21 touches on the weekend, and I'm just checking exactly how many kick-ins he had. He had the 3. Like, he was third in line. So McGovern still had 6. Tyler Juar had 4, and then Baker had 3, and then Ryan Marrick also had 3. So it's a real sharing of the load. But McGovern clearly still is the number. Well, not clearly on the weekend, but he's still the number 1 kick-in taker. But you would think when a team gets beaten by 87 points that the ball would be back in defence a lot, which it was. But Liam Baker didn't get amongst it. 77 GameDay Squad points is just not going to cut the mustard, unfortunately. For us, I know that forwards is not necessarily like 20 or 30 players are going to score over 80 every week. But at the end of the day, there were better options this week. And unfortunately, I picked the incorrect one from the weekend. So without further ado, let's get stuck into round 2 and the games coming up here. So again, we'll talk about a player each from each game, who we might like them or don't like them, but we will be chatting about that soon there as well. And any questions you guys have relating to GameDay Squad specific, we'll answer those throughout the show as well. Any AFL Fantasy question or anything like that will be answered on Friday in our pre-lockout chat show. So let's get into Carlton and Hawthorn on Thursday night, so tomorrow night. So teams in for this one. Charlie Curnow is back for Carlton, so very, very much needed after a shock loss for Carlton last week against Richmond, and Francis Evans has been the one that has been omitted. And then Chunkwath Jath and Jack Gunston come into the side. Sam Frost has been dropped, and Jack Scrimshaw is out injured as well. Plus, he was also suspended for 3 games, so a bit of a double whammy for Scrimmy there. So start with you, Tom. Who's a player that you're keen on or keen to fade in this game?
Going to go keen on, and I'm going to go with Amon. Man, he's been good to start this year. His stats have been really, really, really impressive. So, he's a defender in our game, and there are a lot of good options, and I feel like there's some pretty good depth in order to choose your best sort of 7 defenders. But I'm really high, and I'm really optimistic about the season he's going to have. We have some concerns with Sicily about him being a little bit too dynamic and, being able to play it forward at times and defense. And he's the captain. He's sort of just going to take on that role naturally. But they just appear to be wanting to get Amon the ball a lot and getting it to him. And in really good situations where he's not only able to take marks, but he's able to play on and kick the ball. He's hit 20-plus kicks, I think, in both of the games this season, which in GameDay Squad, you get 4 points per kick. It's just massive. It's a massive sort of floor score that you can get for a defender. So he's probably on the later end of my defense, maybe like a D7. But I'm looking to start and get Amon into my squad for this round. And I think he's going to play really well tomorrow night against the Blues.
Yeah, exactly. The funny thing with Hawthorn's team tomorrow night, obviously Gunston coming in and Scrimshaw and Frost out, I think that could be solid for James Sicily. I think that could be something that he could be someone that scored okay last week in GameDay Squad, but wasn't like a one that would have won you or lost you the week or anything like that. But he could be someone this week that, as you mentioned, and even an Amon as well, I think both could benefit from from Scrimshaw, because he does take some kicks coming out of the back 50, and then Frost obviously not being the sub probably means that back line is probably a little bit more settled than what it normally is. For me, the player that I am keen on, this is probably the game that's a bit trickier for me because I don't believe I've got many players from this game.
Okay.
I wouldn't say
this
that
is my
I'm...
one, by the way, so I'm with you there.
Yeah.
Sorry, two.
Yeah, so the reason that for that, I'll just say I'm keen on Dylan Moore because he's probably going to be locked into my squad for most weeks, more often than not.
Nice.
But it's a tricky matchup against Carlton. We know that Carlton can be a bit tougher of a matchup, but I guess I'll go him. But I guess the guy that I'm not really, he's not in my squad this week, but he's someone that I'm not, I want to watch for a bit more, Sam Walsh. So we both had him in our squad last week. Was okay. CBAs weren't as high, but I would have, if someone asked me before the game, I would have said that would have been the case anyway because he's come back from injury. But someone just to keep an eye on if he can get an increase in CBAs. Apparently, Chera playing with training with the defenders. So if he's playing in defence all of a sudden, maybe Doherty just comes in and takes a Chera role, or maybe Doherty goes halfback. Who knows? Just something to watch on Sam Walsh moving forward. Moving to Friday night footy, which is the Western Bulldogs, or as they should be known this week, Footscray, taking on Collingwood Friday night under the roof. And I remember going to this game last year at Marvel, and it was a cracking game. So I expect another very, very good game here. No, obviously no Bont or Treloar in this game for the Dogs. But Tom, who are you keen on or keen to fade in this game?
I'm going to keep it positive. I'm going to go keen on, and I'm going to go with Bailey Dale. He's had a fantastic start last week, and the reason is the Doggies are undermanned. They're undermanned in their midfield. Their best ball users are out, and that just means that there's more opportunity for someone like Dale to not only get his hands on the ball more, but to push forward. We saw him get quite aggressive in the first round. I think he finished with 2 goals, 1, which is pretty rare to see from a defender. And I just think he's going to operate more towards that middle of the field. They're going to want to get the ball in his hands while there's a lot of outs for the Dogs. And I'm pretty high on him this round. 22 kicks last round, nearly 30 disposals. So just getting plenty of it. And I see much of the same for this round, especially with Treloar and Bont, confirmed to be out again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that could be. He could be pretty good this weekend. Player that I'm keen on this week. Probably going to be the only time I'm keen on him, probably for the next sort of 3-4 weeks or so. Nick Dacos. I'm pretty keen on putting him back into my squad this week. First time this season he'll be there. Obviously had the Bedford tag round 1 last week. He scored over a ton in GameDay Squad, which is great. Well. But he still had Port, which is a tough matchup. And I don't know if Willem Drew really went to him much at all. I was watching the other game while this game was going on. But I just think the Bulldogs don't have a designated tagger necessary to go to him. I think that under the roof, I think he could go well. We had a pretty good game last time they played. I believe he might have scored around 130, 140 GameDay Squad points or even above that last year against the Dogs. So I'm pretty keen on starting him in my squads. And, I think he'll go really, really well. And then we've just got one here from M. Mayfan. I think it is sort of an AFL Fantasy one, but it is also relevant for GameDay Squad. So I thought I'd read out saying, laugh all the amount of overreaction. Guys who watched all preseason and people are panicking back in your primos, and then saying Perryman goes 85 plus this week. I guarantee it. So obviously Perryman in this game, Tom. So what are your thoughts on Harry Perryman, maybe selecting him in your GameDay Squad for this week? A poor score last week, but didn't have a great matchup. Role wasn't great. I do think his role could be better this week, and he could still be a solid pod with a lot of people probably, as MA Fan says, maybe overreacting and taking him out. Yeah,
look, in other circumstances, I'd probably consider starting him a little bit more, but I think the depth at defender is really, really strong this round in particular. It's probably the easiest line group to set this round because you have so many premium and great options to choose from, and a lot of people who are in really good situations. Like my first 2 starts were 2 defenders, for example. So I think that gives you a bit of insight maybe into my mindset for the round. But Perryman, will be playing through the guts. I do think he's a good player. I had him in my classic squad for round 1, so a little bit disappointed. I'm personally fading him this one, but I do expect an increase in points because, to be honest, he was a bit disappointing and I do expect a bit better. But would I be taking the risk for Perryman? Maybe not, but look, he's great value. And as a defender, I can see why people will want to start him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that there's definitely a world where he goes very well and even scores a potential ton in game day squad. But yeah, I've got other options this week. But if you're still keen and you don't want to overreact after 1 week, then by all means, put him into your squad.
That's right.
Moving on to the Saturday games. The first one, I'm excited for this one. Essendon taking on Adelaide. Hoping that the Crows can get their first win at the MCG in like 5 or 6 years. That'd be nice. But speaking about who we're keen on or keen to fade, who are you picking from this game, Tom?
Let's go keen on. Let's go again. I'm going to stick with defenders. This is another one that's in my squad for the round. Nick Martin. Now, there's a lot of concern in the preseason about what we're going to see from Nick Martin in terms of role, where he was going to be on the field. Look, he wasn't getting any CBAs, but it didn't really seem to matter. He was starting a lot on the forward, especially, a general play. But once the ball sort of bounced, it was a bit of free game for him. And it looked like he had the license to really go wherever he wanted to be that connecting player. There's a lot of great ball users at Essendon, which was, I think, a big concern for people. You've got Ridley, Redmond, McGrath, all coming out of that defense. And they sort of, I think, have realized they don't need another, halfback flanker that will just come out of there. They're sort of trying to use him more in the middle of the field. He had 8 marks as well, which is an indication to me that he had not only did he have a great game, but I think he's in for a pretty solid year. I do see some scores fluctuating, though, based on matchups, and maybe he gets a bit of attention. But with the likes of Merritt and Caldwell in this one, I can't see him getting any attention. And I'm just hoping it's much of the same. The Crows are going to be flying, playing well, but they're going to need Nick Martin to get their hands on the footy if they want to stay in it.
Yeah, exactly. Player I'm keen on, I could easily say Jordan Dawson, but I think it's fairly obvious that both of us are fairly keen on Jordan Dawson, not just this week.
The other one. I know who you're going to say.
Yeah, I'm going to say Isaac Rankin is the guy that I'm pretty keen on. So last week, scored 123 game day squad points, so really good performance first up. Had the 28 disposals, 3 marks, 5 tackles, and kicked a couple of goals. A lot of handballs, and we know that obviously game day squad rewards the kicks more. I just think that was probably a little bit more circumstantial with more handballs than kicks.
Yes.
Maybe it could be more that he's in the midfield, so he's not having to kick it as much. But I see him kicking it more than he's handballing in future games. And if that's the case, and even if he performs at the level he did on the weekend, I could easily see these more 120 plus game day squad scores rolling in across the season. And I just think with Jordan Dawson playing so well, I think that maybe there might be as much attention as what I would have thought going to Rankin as what I thought there might have been. So I think he's a really good option, and I think I'd be putting him into your forward lines and keeping him there probably until you see otherwise. Moving to the next game, so the game directly after this, Port Adelaide taking on Richmond at Adelaide Oval. Port desperately needing a win in this game here, that's for sure. Who are you keen on or keen to fade for this game?
Yeah, let's go keen to fade, and I'm going to stick with defenders. I'm going to go with Short. Short was a player that I think a lot of people would have had in consideration, at least for their round 1 squads here in Game Day Squad. But I'm going to fade him this round. He had a good role, but it seemed like it was a tale of two halves for Short. He had a really strong start to the game. I think he was in about 60 Game Day Squad fantasy points and really wasn't able to get over the hump. Now, that was a lot because they actually sort of took control of the game, and it was a little bit unexpected. They were down big early and the ball was getting a lot of use in their defense. But as the game sort of ticked along, he just got less involved, and there's still a world where he can finish as one of the best 7 defenders. He's a great player, don't get me wrong, but I'm going to choose to fade Jaiden Short for this round in particular and just keep an eye on him because he will be in my squad at some point this year again. I just think for round 2, with some of the other options, this is the perfect week to just sit on Short and see him again later.
Exactly. Yeah, and particularly against Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval. It's Port Adelaide already a red matchup, and it'd be even harder being at Adelaide Oval, and particularly when I think Shaw can still get to an okay score, but I just think the upside is capped in a tough matchup. So I would agree. Quinny Gin actually just put in the chat here, and my apologies. Yes, the Dogs game is at the MCG. I said Marvel, so apologies for that. I just assumed seeing Bulldogs there. I just assumed it was at Marvel. So it's interesting that one is at the MCG. It is a home game for the Bulldogs, but in essence, it's almost an away game in a way because they play at Marvel.
Collingwood's territory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So very, very interesting. Player from this game, I'm really keen on. Had a decent enough game last week. It's Connor Rozee against Richmond, and I also put Horn Francis in this as well. Obviously, we're trying to keep it to one player each, but I think I can put these guys in. Yes, Richmond won last week, and okay, who knows if they win again this week or whatever. I don't know if I quite see it. Even though as a Crows fan, it would be a little bit humorous if it happened. But I just see Connor Rozee and Horn Francis both performing well. Rose had a good start with 133, and Horn Francis wasn't as good. Got a bit of attention from a steel side bottom, and Harry Perryman scored the 107. I don't know if you remember, Tom, last year, but there was a game last year against the Dogs at Adelaide Oval where Port absolutely smashed the Dogs in the first half. And both Connor Rozee and Zach Butters would have been on 85, 90 plus game day squad points at halftime. I would not be shocked if that's the case this week, where both Horn Francis and Rozee are on like 70, 80 plus game day squad points at halftime and go on and have big games. So I'm really keen on both. I think Horn Francis is a lock anyway in our squads every week because he's a forward and there aren't as many options, and I think he's one of the top options. Rosie's the one that could obviously be in and out depending on matchup, but I think this is definitely a matchup you don't want to fade him, and he should be in your midfield. So I really like him this week. Moving over to the Saturday night game, which is St Kilda and Geelong, and this one is at Marvel Stadium. So this is correct here at Marvel Stadium. So I've got it right. But Tom, who are you keen on or keen to fade from this game?
Look, there's the really interesting options in this game. I'm just going to start with, and I won't use this one, but Bailey Smith is a must start. If you watch the game he just had, and as a forward in Game Day Squad, get him in. If you've got a card, you have to be starting him in your forward line. There's just no thing. Interesting watch will be De Koning, but I'm going to go with Max Holmes. He's another defender in Game Day Squad, and he's going to be playing in the midfield, and he's going to be doing that a lot this season. And one thing that we like to look for in Game Day Squad is players who are playing at a position pretty similar to maybe Isaac Rankin that you spoke before. He's going to be in the guts a lot, and maybe in the future he will be classified as a midfielder. But for this season in particular, as a forward, he's going to be one of those premium options to be putting in your squad each week. Now, the only concern for Holmes is that he had a really good round last round, 128 fantasy points. He did finish with 2 goals. Don't expect that at all, really. And I don't think it'll happen too many more times this season. He's not really a goal-kicking midfielder. He is a workhorse, though. He will get around the ground. And I do think that sort of that system they have and the opportunity he's going to have is going to be a good start this round. It's going to be a pretty safe start for majority of the season. So, great player. Had a great season last year, and I think he's only building on that. And as a defender this year playing in the guts, it's a card you're going to want for sure, whether you're going to play it this round with me or whether you're going to play it in other rounds for later on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, obviously, we'll show our squads towards the end of the show, but he's definitely in my squad as well this week. There's actually a lot of players in this game that I've got. So, obviously, the opposite of the Carlton Hawthorn game, this is a lot of players in this game. St Kilda give up points, but score a lot of points under the roof at Marvel. I think it's going to be a points fest on Saturday night. Player I'm keen on, Brian Myers in the forward line. I think he could have a good game this week. Obviously St Kilda give up a lot of the +7s, as we say in Game Day Squad. Obviously, a lot of people say +6, but +7 in Game Day Squad. I think there'll be a lot of those on offer for Brian Myers, maybe a couple of goals as well. I just think he could have a lot of influence on this game, and obviously gets up the ground a lot, gets involved in all the chains going forward, and is always good for maybe a goal or so a game. So I'm really keen on him this week and think he's a really good option in the forward line that could have a ceiling score for us in Game Day Squad this week. Moving across to the Sunday games. So the first game being Brisbane and West Coast. Who are you keen on or keen to fade from this game? I'm pretty sure we'll both be going for a keen on in this game, but who are you going with, Tom?
Yeah, I like to keep it positive when we can. Let's go keen on and let's go Dane Zorko. This is the exact type of matchup where Dane Zorko is going to potentially finish with like 35 or 40 disposals. He loves to get fed the ball, and he loves to be the link-up player for the Lions, and he's going to be doing a lot of running, and presumably he's going to be free for a bit of it as well through the guts. I think he's in for a massive, massive round. Of course, they're at home. They're at the Gabba. It's their first game at home for the season. I think the emotion and the game and the matchup and everything is screaming a Zorko just ballistic performance. So another defender, pretty common theme here. This is the line group that I'm targeting this week in terms of some of the better players, performing players, and Dane Zorko will be at the top of the list of those.
Yeah, agreed. I'm going to stick with the keen on in this game, and I'm really keen on this player here, and we'll chat about this with sort of our locks of the weeks and fades of the weeks shortly after. But for me, I'm really keen on Josh Dunkley this week. There's another player that I will talk about in the lock of the week that I'm really keen on, but Josh Dunkley was fantastic last week. He was I believe the second top scoring player, if I'm not, or in the midfield, if I'm not mistaken, in GameDay Squad. It was Jai Caldwell was number one. I think Josh Dunkley was second.
Tied on 155.
Yeah, so they tied. Yeah, so 155. Yep. Great score to start off. And we know that in these games, Josh Dunkley can go massive against the teams where he can really feast on. And he fills all the stat lines, tackles, marks, kicks, handballs, he can kick a goal or two as well. I think that he's a guy that you don't want to miss out on in this West Coast matchup. It's for Brisbane, they're unveiling the flag as well. Obviously, weren't able to do that in opening round against West Coast. Yep. I could see it being a big win after a tougher game against Sydney at the SCG, where they got the win, but it's a close game for a lot of it. I could see this being a big one for Brisbane and a lot of players getting in on the act. So for me, I really like Josh Dunkley.
I know it's a basketball thing, but he had a triple-double last game. 17 kicks, 10 handballs, 10 tackles. Pretty impressive.
You loved it. You loved it. You love to see it. Moving over to the second last game of the round, North Melbourne and Melbourne at Marvel Stadium. So I'm glad I'm getting this correct instead of getting the bloody stadium's wrong. But anyway, North Melbourne and Melbourne, who are you keen on or keen to fade from this game, Tom?
Let's go keen to fade. And I think I made a bit of a boo-boo in my sending you the squad later. So I'll just explain that one, because you're going to listen to what I'm about to say and be like, how have you said this? And then now I can see what I see on the screen. But I think Max Gawn's in for a pretty tough day in the office. And I think it's one of the matchups that I'm going to fade him. And a lot of people sort of might try to go the 1-2 punch of Cherry and Gawn, but I just can't see both of them being top-tier ruckman for the round. And if I'm going to pick one or the other, my heart lays with the other. So Gawn has to be the one that I'm fading, and I'm going to be looking elsewhere to fill in a ruck spot. And I have some good candidates, but there are some really interesting ruck matchups this round. They're going to make it pretty difficult to decide. Like even the Thursday night game, Nankervis went really good, but De Koning did as well. So that's a really tough go. So not De Koning, Meek. But anyway, fading Gawn this round, which is unbelievable because you had 145 fantasy points. So people might think I'm silly, but that's the decision I'm making.
I don't mind it. Well, GameDay Squad, it's a week-to-week game. You can change your squad as many times as you want, so you can fade as many good players as you want one week, and you can bring them back in the next. So that's the beauty of GameDay Squad. Player that I am, let's go with. There's a couple of players in mind from this game. I'm going to go keen on. And I'm going to go, actually, I will go the other side of this ruck matchup, which is a Tristan Xerri. So a lot of people be concerned with the Big X and the matchup against Matt Gawn this week. And I, to an extent, am as well. And I don't know whether that ceiling will necessarily be there. But I still think that he's such a good player. People are worried about he averaged, obviously, lower in the first half of the year compared to the back half. And yes, I understand he had, obviously, all the backup rucks and he had that great run. And I think there was even a couple of 200 scores in GameDay Squad. But I just think he's a better ruckman than what he was at the first half of the year last year. He got there last week, and he had a over 50-point quarter in GameDay Squad that didn't have any tackles, which is what he sort of builds his game around, tackles and hitouts. He'll still get his 20, 25 hitouts or more. Maybe Gawn will restrict him a bit more, but I think he'll still get enough hitouts. He'll get enough touches, get his tackles, and I think he'll be solid. So if people might be scared, I'm not as necessarily scared of the matchup. I don't think a ceiling score will be there, so I wouldn't be thinking he's going to go 150, 160, but I still think go 120, 130. And at the end of the day, is any other ruckman got as much upside as what the X has got? And if you replace him with, like if you replace Gawn, for example, with a Nank or a TDK or someone like that, or an English, they've probably got the same amount of upside as a Cherry anyway, and Cherry's got a fairly high floor. So I'm pretty keen on him, and also pretty keen on a Harry Sheezel in this game as well. Think he could go quite well. Moving to the final game of the round, which is Fremantle and Sydney at Optus Stadium. So who are you keen on or keen to fade from this game, Tom?
I'm going to go Keen to fade. And one of my favorite players, so this is going to hurt to say, but Caleb Sarong. I was pretty disappointed with his round one performance. 101 fantasy points, 14 kicks, 13 handballs. So, look, he was getting his hands on the footy, but he seemed to do it in really one sort of burst, and that was in the third quarter. So I'm a little bit concerned the rest of the game, how he wasn't able to find his hands on the footy. And it just seemed like Brayshaw was more of the player that was getting it a bit more and getting that consistent stream of points. So, yeah, he's normally a player that I love to place in my squad, but going to be fading him really early this season. And maybe he comes back to sting me, but the Swans are traditionally a really tough mid matchup. Dunkley didn't make it look like it last week with 155, but the regular midfielder normally struggles a bit more, and I feel like someone like Caleb Sarong is going to get impacted by it. So fading him for the round.
Yeah, agreed. I think I've got my first fade of the week as well. I think I've done keen on in all the games, but I'm also going to double down on a fade in this game, and I'm also going to be fading Andrew Brayshaw this week. So tough matchup against Sydney. I know it's at Optus, but it is still a tough matchup. I don't necessarily see a ceiling score coming from either an Andrew Brayshaw or a Caleb Sarong. And the thing that slightly worries me is that, so Mark O'Connor went to Andrew Brayshaw last week instead of going to Caleb Sarong, which was very, very interesting as a tag. I wouldn't be shocked if a row bottom sat next to a Caleb Sarong and a James Jordan ran around with Brayshaw, because we know Brayshaw is gets all over the ground, really hard work, but we know James Jordan can also do the same thing. So I think a row bottom against Sarong and Jordan against Brayshaw makes a bit more a bit of sense if you look at it. Obviously, there's a chance that Jordan goes to a Jordan Clark and keeps him quiet. Maybe Jordan just does go to a Sarong and row bottom just finds a footy, doesn't have it a roll. But I wouldn't be shocked. And even with that little flag, and there's some really good players in the midfield this week, some really positive matchups. I'm fading for the tough matchup, but there's also the slight chance of some sort of attention coming his way. So that's what I'm a bit concerned of. Ryan Benger's got this question here, Tom, so I'll let you answer this one. I've just bought a few packs. Sure. How do I open them? Where in the app do you go after purchase? I can't find them.
Let me help you out, Ryan. So if you've got the app open, you'll see the Aussie rules, and you'll have like the dashboard. Down the bottom of the app, on the bottom right, there'll be store, and you'll have these 3 tabs that pop up here. What you want to do is you want to go to player, and I have none because I have no packs loaded, but right there is where you'll find any store packs. And then starter, right next to it, is where you'll get any starter packs. So they're your weekly ones that you get dropped into the account just for playing. And they're the bronze cards that you'll get. So you've got the store, starter packs, and the packs and where to open them all on that screen there, bottom right.
Yeah, perfect. So hopefully, Ryan, that helps you there.
Let us know if that helps, mate.
Yeah, and I'm sure if that doesn't help and you can't find them still, Ryan, then I'm sure reach out to Tom or Cal at GameDay Squad in the Discord, and I'm sure that they can help you a bit more and go through it with you there. Cool. Well, that is all of the games that we've gone through. So we'll go through our lock of the week and fade of the week. So we'll start with fade of the week first. Tom, who's your fade of the week?
Oof. Who is my fade of the week? It's a good question. It could be Sarong, but I don't want to talk about Sarong because I sort of just gave my spiel on that. Let's go with...
You can still say Sarong. It doesn't matter. If you're not counting him, just go with Sarong fade of the week.
Yeah, I guess, but I'm going to go with Dan Houston. I feel like Dan Houston, he had a really big game last round.
Fade of the week. Interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really good premium options for this round. And Dan Houston over the season, I'm really bullish on, and I think he's going to play really well. But for round 2, I think he's a really smart fade, just considering the circumstance and the matchup. I feel like, as we sort of spoke about, it's going to be like a Dacos sort of game. It's going to be like those midfielders going to be getting their hands on the footy, and I can see a world where Houston isn't really required to be as explosive and to be as good in terms of scoring. Maybe that comes back to bite me because you can also hit the scoreboard, and if you can kick a goal or 2, then my goodness, that score could fly through the roof. But I'm going to bank on fading, and I'm hoping, that's a smart decision for me for the round.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'll do, I'll actually take your guy that you're fading in that Freo game, and I'm going to say my fade of the week is Caleb Sarong. If people remember last year, he copped attention. I remember this game at Optus. He was going really well. I think he would have been on like maybe 75 or 80 game day squad points at halftime. And James Jordan went to him, and he didn't have much of it in the second half. I think he may have barely got to a ton in game day squad. So for me, he's going to get some sort of attention. If it's from a Roy Bottom or a James Jordan, he will cop some sort of attention. So I'm fading him, and Sydney's a tough matchup as it is. Who is your lock of the week?
Lock of the round.
I hope you don't steal mine, but...
Well, you go first then. So
no, you go. So no, I'll go.
One.
You go, because you don't have him in your squad. So I'm pretty confident you're not going to go in.
Okay, great then. Great news. Let's go lock of the round. He's going to be Josh Dunkley for me. And I really like how you picked him as your start for the round in that game. And it's for all the right reasons. He's going playing against West Coast. I just think it's a really good matchup. And at the Gabba, bit of a tighter ground than maybe some others. I just think he's going to be really involved. He's going to get his hands on the footy. And he just seems to impact in so many different ways that in this sort of game, I'm not expecting him to go 155 again. I'll be honest with you. I'm probably thinking a bit more safe, and probably around that 130 range, which is a really good outing, irrespective. So we'll see if he can go nuts. Then great. But Josh Dunkley is a really safe start this round. Hence why I'm picking him as my lock.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I'm glad that you didn't take my lock of the week. So my lock of the week, and I deliberately didn't talk about him in this game when we chatted about it, and it is the Brisbane and West Coast game. My lock of the week, and I'm really confident with this, is Lachie Neale. Lachie Neale is my lock of the week. We see time and time again when players have a bad game, and this wasn't just a bad game in terms of, Lachie Neale got tagged by James Jordan, didn't get much for that's fine. This was like his worst rated performance since like 2016. And this is a dual Brownlow medalist we're talking about here. So it's been a long time since he's been that poor. I don't think he touched the ball from the, I think it was like second or third quarter. I think he had 0 disposals in both those quarters. James Jordan did an incredible job. And I think obviously us as fantasy coaches, we look at it and go, James Jordan, he's crap. We don't want to see him tagging. But at the end of the day, it's a very, very good tag. And he does his job very, very well. But we see time and time again, players that get tagged, the following week when they don't cop as much attention, when the team's you would expect them to win well, that frees them up. They get a lot of the ball, and they almost overindulge in getting the footy. And I think Lachie Neale is going to do this. So I don't have his game day squad points in terms of against West Coast in the last few games, but in terms of his AFL fantasy score, which you can translate to game day squad, he's got 133 points against them last year. So that would have been 152. I think about 158 game day squad points in that game. So obviously a massive game. The year before, he's got 127 fantasy points. So that would have been 146. Yeah, 146 points in game day squad. And then even the year before that in 2022, he scored 113 game day squad points. So that would have been about 126 game day squad points. It's probably within 1 or 2 points, but that's roughly what he scored. So really good recent history against West Coast. Even scored a good score against them in 2021, but I'll just go back with those 3. But really good record against West Coast. Does a Jack Graham, Liam Duggan, someone like that sit on him? I don't even know if Liam Duggan will play this week. I think he's a test. But I just think Lachie Neale, he's going to go really well. And he's my lock of the week. And that way, it won't shock anyone that he's in my squad, which we'll get to now. So let's show the squads on the screen. So we'll go with Tom's squad first. Obviously, a tough round 1, but round 2, Tom, how are you getting back on track?
Yeah, I'm getting back on track by picking players who I think are going to score really well and have great opportunity. I think the midfield this round, other than maybe Clayton Oliver's pretty vanilla. Dawson, Rosie, Dacos, Dunkley, and Merritt, I think we nearly all spoke about, maybe other than the likes of Merritt. I was considering putting Caldwell in as my M6, but I don't want to overreact to one performance. My goodness, was it a great one? Don't get me wrong. But there is a chance that I might second guess myself and want to go there. But for now, I was pretty happy with how Clayton Oliver went in round one. Obviously, there's a lot of room to build on with only getting 99 fantasy points, but he's versing North this week. And I think against a team like North, he's going to have the chance to score really well. My forward line was probably my strongest line group from last round in terms of I picked the players who played really well, other than the likes of Jai Simpkin. That's probably the one that I missed out on. I currently don't have one of his bronze cards. Most likely, I would put in Jai Simpkin over Caleb Daniel if I had the possibility, just because I think that upside in that score is a little higher there. But the rest there, McRae, Moore, Myers, Rankin, and Bailey Smith, I think are just all some of your better and more premium forward options. So really stoked about that. And my defense is where I think I might win it in this round in particular. They're pretty household names, don't get me wrong, but I think the combination of names that you're going to be picking is going to be really, really important to make sure that you sort of elevate yourselves up the leaderboards. One I was looking at is the Geelong De Koning. He's a defender in our game, and he played so good last round. And Geelong have the Saints. And the reason I'm looking at it is because Marshall was really banged up last game, and De Koning might just have the chance to dominate in this one. He's not going to really be going up against a legitimate number one ruck option. So if there was to be a change, I do think that would be the one there in that line group. But as I mentioned, Amon's been so good. I just don't know who I would take out for De Koning. It might even be Holmes if that is the case. But for now, this is my squad. Pretty happy. Let me know if you're watching along here, if you would make any changes. If you had every card available to you in GameDay Squad and every player, who would you be putting in there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think with De Koning, if you're going to play him any week, it's this week against St Kilda. He's got two tough matchups, Brisbane and then Melbourne. So McInerney in 4 and then Gawn. You wouldn't be playing him at all in any of those weeks. So if you're going to play him, it's going to be this week, and you could benefit from that as well. So a couple of changes between our squads for the week. So looking with my squad up on the screen there. So I guess the only difference is in defence. So I've gone Jack Sinclair in there as well, and also Tom Stewart. So both those guys in that game, as you guys can see, just from that Geelong and St Kilda game, I've got 4 defenders in my squad there, including 3 forwards. So a lot of players from that game there. I just think that, I think our defence are the same, and I think that Sheasel, Zorko, Martin, and Nasai Wanganeen Miller are all sort of, they sort of pick themselves in a way. And then Max Holmes we both got. But I just think Sinclair, he scored all right last week, considering it's a bad loss for them. They're back at home at Marvel this week. I think they'll put up a bit of a better showing, but where they can stop Geelong, I don't think that's the case. And then Tom Stewart had a great role last week, playing in the midfield and then rolling back. I was very nervous, Tom. I don't know if you saw it. He went down early with a head knock with Luke Jackson. Early. And I had him in multiple formats, not just Game Day Squad. I had him in a lot of squads, but also in like fantasy and all these other formats. I've got him, and I was thinking, crap, Game Day Squad, AFL Fantasy, Bolter, and all that are all down the drain with an injury. Thankfully, came back on and scored very well. Scored over a ton in Game Day Squad. Really, really happy with that. And I think this St Kilda matchup, I think, could be good. I guess the flag with him and Holmes is, does Windhager tag? Does he go to one of these guys? Or does he sort of just not worry about it? I don't think it had a massive impact on a Dawson last week. But Dawson's a different breed of player when you're trying to tag him. So, interesting to watch, but I'm backing in Stewart and Holmes both there. Midfield is the exact same guys on field. I just have Lockie Neal, as I said before, my lock of the week. So he is sitting there as my bench player. And as we know in Game Day Squad, our bench players do score. If you guys are new to Game Day Squad, those 4 players, so Stewart, Neal, Gawn, and Caleb Daniel will all score points for me this week, who are there. Rucks are there. I've toyed with going Gawn potentially to I think the 2 guys I've looked at are Toby Nankervis against who have Richmond got? Port Adelaide. So Jordan Sweet could be okay, but I don't know if I love the Adelaide Oval matchup. And then TDK, Tom De Koning's the one I'm really looking at against Hawthorn. Looked great against Nate the other night, and he could have a decent game, and I might put him in there instead of Gawn, but I'm not 100% sure if we'll do that. And then the forward lines, ours are the exact same forward line, the exact same 7 sitting there. And I think they're pretty consensus sort of 7 that most people are going to have this week. Maybe Grind Myers is in there. Maybe it's a Simpkin. Maybe it's a Jeremy Cameron. Jeremy Cameron's a bit of a smoky as well. Could have a few goals with a beaten up St Kilda defence. But that's the team I'm currently rocking with there. And yeah, pretty happy with it at the moment. As I said, maybe Gawn goes for me. And as you said, Gawn may go for you as well. So there, how our squads are lining up for round 2. So any final thoughts, Tom, ahead of round 2?
Yeah, mate. Look, this is my round to get back on track. So I have a lot of thoughts. My head is spinning and racing, but I'm really, obviously, make sure that you're checking the availability of all the players tomorrow. The worst thing to do early in the season is to get stuck into that and get some null scores. So be on top of it. Do the rounds. Make sure you're checking. And more importantly, we have a rolling lockout. So if you are going to be starting players, you already know the players starting tonight, or tomorrow, sorry. Make sure you have those ones in your squad, and then you can fill out the rest later. When I mean fill out, have every position filled, because otherwise you'll get a null score. But you can sub them out later as long as they haven't played in one of the first games. So make sure you're locking in those players. That's sort of the most important ones. But this is a great round. There are some really, really good fantasy matchups, and I think the key, or the marquee matchup, is sort of the one that you touched on, that you have so many players in. I'm really excited to watch the Saints versus Geelong. That's probably the game that I'm most excited for. There's just a lot to be looking at, a lot of players that I'm interested in, not only for the season, but for the round. It's going to be great. Let us know, what your favorite round will be. And, if there's any sort of pods you might be looking at for the round, I'd be interested to see everyone's thoughts of their breakdown.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My final thoughts is a bit what MMA fans said before in the show as well. So about don't overreact to one score. It's one game of data. Like we don't have a lot of data to work with some of the premium players. And a guy like Lockie Neal, for example, who I said lock of the week, one game he scored an awful score, but don't overreact. Yep. He got tagged by James Jordan. Look at the player and what their role is, and bring everything together, including the matchup, and see what they can do. Like Horn Francis, people may go, 100's not enough. I'm going to go for someone else that scored bigger this week. But Horn Francis got Richmond. So just look at some of the matchups for some players and sort of make those calls there and go with your gut with it with a few of these as well. So that's probably what I'd be saying there as well. But yeah, let us know in the comments below, though, guys, who your lock of the week and fade of the week are. Be really interesting to know who you guys are going with those two in your game day squads. So let us know that, and any questions you guys have got, put them in there as well. But Tom, mate, thanks again once for jumping on with me. Where can the people find you across the socials, and anything else you would like to say before we wrap up?
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure to follow all the Game Day Squad socials. If you need any help along with your Game Day Squad journey, we are always ready and available to help you. So any questions, whether it's a big one or small, please reach out. Feel free to. We'll help you along your way, and maybe even give you some bonus goodies for hopping along, because we do appreciate the support. So just at Game Day Squad for any of our socials. We do have a Discord server where we run some private giveaways and stuff. So if that's your thing and you're interested, please go check that out. It's awesome. And then me on X is at TommyGDS. So you'll be able to find me there. I'll be posting my final squad tomorrow once the lineups have dropped. So if you're interested to see if I have made any changes, I'll be honest with you, I don't think, other than the Gawn one, I don't think there'll be too many in there. I'm pretty happy with the squad that I've set so far. But Bales, where can everyone find you and all the things you do?
Beautiful. You can find me at BAILSDT, and you can find us at AFL Fantasy Fans across the socials as well. We obviously, if you guys haven't already, check out Trade Talk video. There was before this one earlier this afternoon, Captain's video, and then our pre-lockout chat is on Friday, our show there. So make sure you guys come along and tune into that. If you've got any questions regarding your AFL fantasy stuff, so I see some good questions in here for that. But this show on the Wednesdays, we focus purely on Game Day Squad. So next week, if you got any Game Day Squad questions, or any week, feel free to chuck those in the chat, and we'll happily answer those for you. But any other questions we'll be able to answer happily for you on Friday, or head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/AFL Fantasy Fanatics. Can answer all your questions there, team reviews, bonus content, everything there, all goes in there. So make sure you guys head over there if you would like to check that out. And also sign up if you haven't yet at Game Day Squad, and use my code BAILSDT at sign up for some free packs when you sign up. So thanks, Tom, for jumping on me once again. Good luck, everyone, with your squads this week. Hopefully you have a good round. And if you already had a good round, hopefully it's another good round backing up there. And we'll catch you guys next Wednesday for our round 3 show. So thanks, everyone. Catch you then. See ya.